Yeah, speaking of Hall of Famers, Connor McDavid got one on the line. Joe Nieuwendyk. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you, JD?
I'm doing well, minus, the state of sports here. That's not as good, but we got the Argos. They're playing a playoff game this weekend. That's going to be all right. And we have the Hyundai Hockey Hall of Fame Legends game, which, by the way, so you're one of the team captains on Team Goal Scorers. My producer put in that you were the captain of Team Playmakers, and I went, no, trust me, he's the goal scorers captain. I think that you score over 500, you're the goal scorers captain. But this is the first thing that I actually ever covered in my career. And I would suggest that people go to the Hockey Hall of Fame's website. It's www.hhof.com. And if you haven't gotten a ticket yet, Sunday afternoon, you go spend some time down there. I had so much fun the first time that I went to it. There are so many legends that are in the game. It's really cool to see guys like yourself and Adam Oates and Peter Forsberg is there, Ryan Getzlaf is there, Jana Heffert is there, Henrik Lundqvist obviously playing this game, Gary Roberts, your buddy. It's a whole lot of games, and it's a whole lot of fun. So yes, to those that are interested in this, make sure you go check out the website because there are still tickets available. How serious do you take these games? Because I know there's some guys like Rick Vive that want to score a bunch. You in the Vive category?
I don't think I'm in the vibe category at this point, but I am happy that I got my buddy Gary Roberts on our team because he still gets a little competitive. I saw him one outdoor game. He was chopping Draper out there.
Yeah.
So he's still got the fire in him.
Well, here's the thing. Sports are all about stakes, right? He has stakes. If he's not the fittest guy out there, it's a problem for him.
Yeah, that's very true. And even at his age right now, he's still competing with the guys he trains with. So
as he should.
He hasn't changed.
How often are you back here?
Not very often, to be honest with you. I'm actually in upstate New York. We're empty nesters this year, so we've had a beautiful fall here, and going to be heading back to Dallas soon. As soon as we see the first snowflake. But looking forward to the weekend in Toronto. I'm really happy for my buddy Mike Vernon. He was just a great goalie for us all those years in Calgary. So looking forward to seeing him go in the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
it's got to be a really fun weekend, being a part of all these events, being asked to be team captain at the Legends game, probably getting to reminisce about your own Hall induction, getting to see your friends. But being back in the city, the reason I ask is it dawned on me yesterday. It shouldn't have dawned on me because we've brought it up a billion times, but that the Leafs just won their first playoff series since you scored the 2 against the Leam. Has that set in for you at all? Like, had you thought about that when you came to the city?
Well, I followed it because it was brought up every year. When are they going to win a series? And they've had good dynamic teams the last few years. I'd like to think they're going to take the next step this year, but we'll see. I mean, it's a long year, and I think Leaf fans in Toronto only care about what happens in come playoff time. So. But there's no doubt they have another good team that they could make a run. Hey Joe, they care right now. The team's below 500 to start the season. They're caring. they want some wins right now. This game against your Calgary Flames tonight is actually going to be a big one here in Toronto. They got to start to put some wins together. They got to start to put just a little bit of an identity together. But I was also thinking about you. Just you're being here. You being with Gary Roberts. You had such a great season in Toronto. You were an immediate fan favorite. You were an area guy. You came in, you scored over 20 goals. And again, I think for a lot of people my age who are in their 30s, you scored 2 of the most memorable goals that we have. Like that a Leaf fan my age, if you go, hey, put up the goals that are yours. Put up the goals that you remember. You have them against the Leam in 04. And it seemed like such a slam dunk that you were going to come back. And I wonder, I'm sure, like, you had another good year in Florida, but do you look back and wish you would have been able to end your career here? Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Gary and I talk about that often. We both had another year left on our deal there in Toronto, and of course there was the work stoppage, but we thought that they should have brought that team back together. Brian Leach was, he was excited to be there. Mats was a great captain. We just had a really good team that could do something. And after the work stoppage, they decided to break that up. And I understand it to a certain point. The players were getting older, but boy, we had a good group of guys there and a good feel in that locker room. I thought they should have kept it going for at least another year.
What was the sticking point with you guys? Because it was always rumored that it was just, you and Gary wanted to play together and that they would only tender one of you a deal.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the ins and outs of all of that. We certainly weren't there breaking the bank for the franchise at that point in our careers. Right. We were just happy to be there, and I really enjoyed playing with Matt. I was just amazed at how we came together that one year that I did play there. Because it's not the easiest place to play. We had to retool some things, get the newspapers out of the locker room, and we really bonded together as a team, and Ty was a big part of that. And I just really felt to this day that they should have kept that group together for at least to take one run at it. Well,
yeah, lockout hurt. Lockout really hurt a group like yours. And it's funny that you mentioned Brian Leetch, because I feel, he played so few games here. I think it was only 15 to 20 regular season games, because it was right after the deadline. But just how impactful he was and how much he still had it. And then, of course, he comes back after the lockout and he's not with the Leafs anymore. But, yeah, do you remember, what it was like, that deadline, bringing him in and just the impact that he had on your group?
Oh, man, it was great. I mean, every team would like to have a guy like Leachy, and he was still playing at such a high level in his career. But he just kind of slotted everybody so much better on our team, and kind of made Thomas Caberlet a number 2, where Cabby was number 1. But when Leachy came in, he kind of gave that mantle to him. But that's why I was disappointed, because I was really happy about the way the team was, and having Leachy there, and he was a terrific player. He ran the power play. He just controlled things. So and the good thing was, he was, after being so many years in New York, he was just really excited to be with that group. He enjoyed it in the locker room, and and it was too short. You're right, 20 games or whatever it was. I don't even know if it was that many, but just too short.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably some of the toughest stuff as a professional athlete, right? Is the feelings of lack of closure with the teams that you can't control, right?
Yeah. And as I said before, I understand it to a certain point. Ronnie Francis retired after that. We brought him in, but we were getting older. There was no doubt about it. But to put that team together, it took some maneuvering to get it. I thought at least they could have given us one more opportunity to do it. Not comparing ourselves to those old Chicago Bulls teams by any means, but they certainly let those guys run their course, and we didn't really get out of the starting blocks, I thought. Yeah,
you wanted your last dance. You didn't know that it was the last dance as it was happening, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. But I mean, it seems kind of silly to compare it to the Last Dance.
No. Who was your rodman?
Who was our rodman? Well, Ty. It had to be Ty.
Yeah, that checks out. Okay, I guess last one on I guess those years. You mentioned it, that it could be difficult. You had to get the newspapers out of the dressing room, and I know times have changed where you can't get the newspaper out of the dressing room because the newspaper's on everybody's phone, right? And so there are some pretty stark differences from playing when you did in Toronto versus then, but the pressure is still the same, right? The building is very similar in terms of right now. The Leafs have been booed in their home arena in their last 2 games, and what did you find to be the most difficult part of playing here? And I would imagine it's a little different because you had family from the area as well, so maybe your answer is just satiating people with tickets for every single game. But what did you find was the toughest thing for players who were going through it in this market, who maybe weren't as popular as you, with dealing with, the media and fan scrutiny?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I know the media, that I know the pressure of playing there. It certainly was back when we played there in 2004 and all those years. But and playing in Toronto is really not for everybody. There's no doubt about that, and a lot of Canadian cities are that way. But for me, at that point in my career, coming to that team, it was one of the most enjoyable years of my career. I really enjoyed it. I just thought Mats was a terrific captain, and the way he carried himself in that city, and because everybody flocked to Mats, they wanted to talk to him, the media, and not unlike today with Tavares and Austin Matthews. Those guys carry a lot of the weight. Mitch Marner, but it's a challenging place to play that way because the expectations are so high. But from a guy who's looking back now, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. You want to feel hockey. I came to after Toronto. We signed in Florida, and that was tough going from the hockey hotbed of the NHL to a place where it didn't really matter if you won or lost. To be totally brutally honest, the sun was shining. Guys go their separate ways to the beach, and no one really cared. You feel it in Toronto. You feel it in Calgary. That if you lose, you're going to hear it. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the most meaningful games you would have played in Florida were when the Leafs were in town and you had all the snowbirds flock in, and you went, all right, this was like to have juice in the building again. Right. And it's still that way. Like Florida makes a cup run, and you see the following season, just the fan base immediately just kind of tail off. It's really hard to build momentum there, and this is why. I always feel this way as a fan and as someone who looks at the team, similarly to what you just said, which is I think that it's hard, and it's been hard on a lot of the younger guys on this team. But what I think we're seeing a little bit is, or what you'll probably see is when some guys end up leaving or the careers are done, they will realize how special it was to play in a place that had this much pressure and that had this much fan interest and this much care. Because you hear that. You hear that answer a lot, Joe, the one that you gave, which is, hey, I played there and it could be difficult at times, but then I left and I missed that pressure and that feeling of, people are actually invested in this. People actually care about this.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, we won that. You started the interview by talking about that 2004 series against Ottawa.
Yeah, I
remember winning that series and driving out of the tunnel there at the Air Canada Center, and you couldn't even drive your car out of there.
Yeah,
that's how passionate the fans were after one series win. So I mean, if you don't feel that, if you don't get goosebumps over that type of stuff, that's what you want in your hockey career. Some guys play their entire career and don't get to experience stuff like that. Those guys get to do it on a nightly basis. There was something really special about putting that jersey on every night. And I know it's challenging, but I know they care. It's just really challenging to put the right group of players together that can get it done in that city. But I want to think they're close. I mean, they're so talented.
Yeah. Listen, they have a lot of talent on their team. It's just the one thing when I was looking back at that 2004 roster is just the amount of names that are on it. And the advantage the group had was you could bring in a Brian Leach, right? Because there was no salary cap, and how damaging this has been to the league and how damaging it's been for big market teams. And I get it. The league wants to have parity, and they want to have a lot of the other franchises survive. But yeah, as a fan of one of the teams that I'll just say, where it matters more, it's really, really tough because you build this angst amongst a fan base that really shouldn't be there. And your reward for collecting talented players like Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares and doing really great work to get these guys is that it becomes increasingly difficult to do this around the fringes. And then it puts even more pressure on these other players to actually to perform here. And this is the part that I feel the worst about as an observer of the team, which is, do I mind that there's pressure? No. Do I think that some guys will appreciate it later in their careers? Yes. But the players that I empathize with are the ones like, and I remember talking to Ed Belfour about this actually, because when he came to Toronto, he struggled out of the gates. But he was Ed Belfour, so he had a wealth of experience to lean on. He knew who he was, and then eventually he performs, right? One of the most memorable parts about that series against the Senators. But I feel for a guy like you drafted in John Klingberg, who has come here to Toronto, who has stumbled out of the gates, has not had the offense outweigh the defensive struggles, and it's a snowball, and you can't get out from underneath it. And yeah, I guess if you were going to impart something to a player like that, or to a new member of a team that is starting to deal with that pressure and just feels like they can't escape it, what would it be?
Well, I think in the case of Klingberg, I think fans, they didn't get him for his defensive prowess, that's for sure. And I know that seems to be a bit of an emphasis in Toronto, but when you're going through that analysis, I started to think about, this really has to have some time. They've made some significant changes, and a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, I think he went to Boston last year, and he was one of their best players in the playoffs. I know it was only one series, but those are the type of players that are going to show their worth down when it really gets crunch time. The Marners and the Matthews, they can carry the team all year. But I think you'll see the full effect of some of the guys they brought in when it's actually time to go and the time that fans care about. I know it's a struggle right now being below 500, but those guys are trying to find their way, the Bertuzzis, the Max Domi, and players like that. But they will show their true wealth, I think, when it actually comes time in the playoffs. But I know you got to get there, but I guess my point is that they've made quite a few changes where it takes a little time to put things together, but I wish them luck. It's a lot of fun when the Leafs are doing well.
Mm-hmm. Did that perspective shift for you going from being a player to a general manager? Like how long it takes for a team to coalesce, or how long you start to really judge whether or not something's working?
Yeah, well, circumstances in Dallas were different at the time. We were being owned and operated by the league at that point.
You inherited something quite bad.
Changes weren't happening too well, but I think every general manager strives to put together a collection of guys that can win when it matters most. And the Leafs, to their credit, I think they've been trying to do that. They've got the guys that carry the mail for them. Offense is not an issue. It's just finding those gritty guys and playing good team defense that I think has been a bit of a challenge. They've made efforts to rectify that, and they're not there yet, but it's a long year, and they certainly have the talent to go make deep runs. They just got to figure out other parts of their game, and I think they're trying to do that with some of the players they brought in.
So I'll let you go on this one because, again, you were a GM, and you did inherit extraordinarily difficult circumstances in Dallas. But how difficult is it in that role when a signing you make is not performing up to par, but there seems to be a misalignment with the way that player is being used by the coaching staff? I'm curious how you think that communication between a front office and a coaching staff is most effective in a situation like that.
Yeah, well, I think everybody has to be on the same page, and it's not always the case. You're right. Sometimes the GM brings in a shiny new toy, and then the coach doesn't want to do it, and that creates a little bit of a rift. But I think if you're the GM and you have the vision and you have meetings with the coach, there has to be a plan, and the players have to be put in the roles that they need to be put in order to be successful. I think maybe that's a little bit of what takes time. This conversation might be different 20 or 30 games into the year, where everybody kind of understands where they fit on the team, what they're supposed to do. Everybody gets slotted properly. And I think early in the season, a lot of teams struggle with that. I really don't know what's going on in Edmonton, because they should be up and running a little better than they are. But they're not alone. In Calgary, some of the Canadian teams are having a tough go right now. Yeah,
it's not good for here, the home of hockey in Canada, where we're like, hey, we need you guys to get going. We don't want to have another year of Florida Panthers going to Stanley Cup playoffs or the finals, please. Right. Let's figure this out. Again, tickets are still available for the Hyundai Hockey Hall of Fame Legends Classic. Again, Joe Nieuwendyk, captain of team goal scorers, Adam Oates, captain of team playmakers. You can go to the Hockey Hall of Fame's website to learn more. You can grab the tickets there. Again, highly recommend. Easy ticket for anybody with a family, anybody that's just interested in seeing a ton of legends. You see on the website, there's just an inordinate amount of names playing in this thing. Joe, thanks so much for the time today. I appreciate it. Good luck in the game and enjoy the weekend.
All right, thanks. Looking forward to it. I appreciate it.
Take care. Joe Nieuwendyk, Hockey Hall of Famer. And of course, owner of two of the greatest goals in my lifetime. I won't say Leafs history because they used to win Stanley Cups. But in the modern day era, you can put those up against anything.